So I'm going to move the rook out to e1 to sort of attack the knight. Oh, and the pawn comes down right away. That's actually good, because if he wants to castle over here, this is now weak. So, I'm going to continue down this path. You can see here, if you want to move a piece, you click on it until it turns green, and then you click to the destination square. So you do need to know sort of the basic movements of the chess pieces before you get here. And you need to be able to kind of direct the pieces. The other thing about this particular project that I like is that it requires all sorts of different thinking at once. So right now, I'm kind of thinking and keeping track of my poem, and I'm kind of interested in this. But then I've also got to play in response to the game that's going on. Often this response can be kind of stressful. Right now, this bishop is under attack by this knight here. So I'm thinking about my poem, but then I'm also thinking about how to survive this chess game. So I'm going to retreat my bishop back to a4. And of course the pawn chases me. So this piece was inspired by a game played by Marcel Duchamp and John Cage, in which they played a game of chess, and every time they moved a piece to a square, it played a sound. So this is sort of like that. Their particular piece ended in about 25 minutes. Duchamp played Cage without a knight and ended up beating him in about 20 minutes. What ended up happening next is Duchamp's wife, Teeny, ended up playing John Cage. Their piece took about 3 hours. So what I like also about this work is that it's as long a duration as it takes you to finish the game. I might start playing a little bit quicker, but you can sort of see how this poem expands and contracts as we go. So the other thing about chess is it's not just about the move you make, but it's also about the next move that comes down. So as we're writing these poems, we're also anticipating. All of these things are sort of, both of these poems are in this state of waiting. And it's waiting not only on the piece that you're making, but it's also reacting in anticipation. For example, you're predicting. I would predict that if I left my bishop here, this is going to move down, which would essentially murder my bishop. So I want to create a little escape square. Yeah, and then the pawn moves down. So I will go back here. Now, the other thing about chess is that it's beautiful. There's a lot of really interesting things happening here that at high-level chess you can start to set up and you can start to see the lines. You can start to see the bishop is well set up to cut across here. This bishop is well set up to cut across here. These pawns are kind of moving very, very slowly. What ends up happening when we start getting pawns like this moving very often is that you're often going to be triggering the same sort of language templates over here. So I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing a little bit more repetition as these pawns move down, because you're always going to be choosing from the pawn language pool as it occupies these language templates. Maybe we'll be a bit more exciting. We will press forward and try and capture and see what ends up happening. Oh no, I don't want to do that. Okay. So what I also like about chess is as you play, you're also thinking. Like this would end up coming up here, this gets protected by this, this, this. However, if I go up here, I think he's going to capture back, but if he doesn't and he captures my knight, I'm actually not in good shape. So you end up having to go down 2 or 3 different paths at once and keep both of those paths in your mind as you go forward. As it relates to writing poetry, I think that's very interesting. You're constantly writing maybe 2 or 3 poems at once, and then when you make the choice, it chooses a word and you've chosen your path. You're also constrained. If I consider moving this knight up here, there's not much I can do with it afterwards. So you end up playing chess, it's this long negotiation. And so the game for me is this negotiation between space and play, and in the same way that often my poetic practice is a negotiation between space and play. The other thing is, if we wait long enough, maybe a move materializes. So I'm going to capture here and basically get a free pawn. That's nice.